Tonight on the Worldview Report, the mayor of New York City, he is warning about a global effort to radicalize young people in America. While that might not come as a shock to many of you, it is shocking that he's a Democrat and he said that. Tucked away in the $95 billion military aid package for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan last month was a $3.5 billion slush fund to open new processing centers designed to bring Muslim migrants into America. Hundreds of illegal aliens have established an encampment in a public park in Seattle after the city ran out of funding to house them in hotels. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin is pressuring European countries to give up their own U.S.-made anti-air defenses and send them to Ukraine. All these stories and more as the Worldview Report begins right now.
This is Worldview Report with host Brannon Howse. Whether it is news from the nation's capital or your state capital, from the classroom to the boardroom, from national security to national and local news that impacts you and your family, Worldview Report is your trusted source for vital and uncensored news. And now, here is Brannon Howse.
Good evening and welcome to the Worldview Report. New York City's mayor and top law enforcement officers have raised the alarm of a global effort seeking to radicalize young people in America. Mayor Eric Adams and New York City Police Department leaders have issued the warning while announcing that approximately 300 arrests were made at Columbia University and at City College. This was on Tuesday night. Adams, who is a Democrat, said at a press conference, quote, "I know there are those who are attempting to say, well, the majority of people may have been students. You don't have to be the majority to influence and co-opt an operation. That is what this is about. There is a movement to radicalize young people, and I'm not going to wait until it's done and all of a sudden acknowledge the existence of it. This is a global problem that young people are being influenced by those who are professionals at radicalizing our children. I'm not going to allow that to happen as the mayor of the city of New York," end quote. Adams made clear that making arrests at schools and removing those who do not belong on campus is far from the end of the problem. Quote, "We know that this is only a comma in the full sentence of public protection in this city," end quote. That's what he said. And then he said, quote, "This is not a celebratory movement," end quote. Red State reports that the NYPD going in and cleaning house and generally taking care of business at Columbia University and City College in New York City, well, it brought about the predictable wailing and gnashing of teeth from the usual suspects. Some of them, well, they took aim at the black officers for re-raising, quote, "the flag of a country that has never given a blank about them," end quote, in place of the Palestinian flag. The Twitter machine, being what it is, also brought out the whining from purported historians and so-called professors, some of whom took the opportunity to equate the NYPD's actions at Columbia to the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre. Author Andrew Liu, a history professor at Villanova University, he declared as he watched the situation unfold that, quote, "The NYPD is doing a Tiananmen-style crackdown in Uptown and Midtown, while an NBA playoff game is happening like 500 meters away," end quote. Not to be outdone, another professor claiming to be a religion scholar at Harvard College in Pennsylvania, whose Twitter feed, by the way, is chock full of pro-Hamas propaganda, he proclaimed that the Columbia clearing was even worse than Tiananmen Square. Red State notes that one does not need to be particularly well-versed in history to know that the NYPD clearing out Columbia was nothing like Tiananmen Square, which was an epic confrontation between freedom-loving Chinese patriots and their communist government that resulted in at least 10,000 dead Chinese citizens. Many of the deaths, they took place when protesters were repeatedly run over by government tanks. But when Americans grow up not being taught history, they can be easily brainwashed by the left. It wasn't even that long ago, folks, that this took place, 1989. This was in China. Beautiful, brave Chinese people. Sadly, they were crushed to death by their own government. And what was their crime? They wanted freedom. This is not what you're seeing at Columbia. This is not what you're seeing at UCLA or these other campuses. In fact, it's completely different. And it's not even organic. It's not even genuine. Most of these folks are paid provocateurs. So please, don't let these communist professors tell you or your kids otherwise. Well, it's not all bad news. The scene was different at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, where the interim chancellor, well, he personally replaced an American flag that was pulled down on campus by Hamas-supporting protesters. A group of young men surrounded the American flag on campus to protect it from, well, getting torn down by the rabid Jew-hating and anti-American protesters. The protesters, they had torn the flag down to put up a Palestinian flag. Watch this. In other news, Iran International reports that U.S. support for Israel has vindicated the Islamic Republic's pessimism toward the United States, so says Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. He claimed this in a speech on Wednesday. Khamenei and his loyalists in the Islamic Republic regime have seen, well, a victory in the pro-Hamas riots on American universities. And the Supreme Leader made sure to highlight this to his audience. Here's what he said, quote, "Despite the extensive efforts of Zionists and their American and European supporters, the issue of Gaza remains the top global concern. Protests against the crimes of the Zionist regime in American universities and their expansion to European universities are signs of the continued sensitivity of public opinion worldwide to the Gaza issue," end quote. With heavy political and military investment in Hamas and other militant groups in the region, Iran International noted that, quote, "Khomeini seems desperate to showcase any sign of anti-Israeli and anti-Western public opinion at home and abroad as a sign of vindication for his worldview," end quote. Khomeini was quoted as saying, quote, "The brutal and merciless behavior of the rabid Zionist dog proved the righteousness of the Islamic Republic's position and the Iranian people, and the massacre of 30-some thousand people, half of whom are women and children, demonstrated the evil nature of the Zionist regime and the perpetual righteousness of Iran to the whole world," end quote. Zero Hedge reports that tucked away in the $95 billion military aid package for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan is $3.5 billion of a slush fund that's going to be used to reportedly open new processing centers for Muslim migrants. Republican Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri has described this slush fund as a bid to, quote, "supercharge mass migration from the Middle East," end quote. As Breitbart points out, the $95 billion package, while containing nothing for U.S. border security, does contain $481 million to settle migrants in U.S. cities, and of course, the $3.5 billion to expand the migration programs worldwide. The $3.5 billion was granted to the Department of State, which of course works with many international groups that feed and transport migrants on their way to the United States. Biden's deputies, well, they're now using the refugee program as an adjunct to their diversity expanding equity migration policy. For example, Biden's deputies, they used the program in March to import 3,009 migrants from the so-called safe and democratic countries of El Salvador and Guatemala. They're also using the refugee funds to expand migration routes from many African and Muslim countries. In March, they pulled in 12,018 people from the Congo, plus 16,732 migrants from the Muslim countries of Afghanistan, Syria, Pakistan, and Iraq. That's according to the report by Stacker.com. According to an April 23rd release from the Biden DHS visa granting agency, quote, the Biden-Harris administration set the refugee admission ceiling for fiscal year 2024 at 125,000 refugees, end quote. Then they added, quote, with the opening of the Doha field office on May 7th, 2024, and the Ankara field office on May 9th, 2024, the USCIS will have 11 international field offices, end quote. Other international field offices are located in China, Guatemala City, Havana, Cuba, Mexico City, Nairobi, Kenya, New Delhi, India, San Salvador, El Salvador, and in Honduras. What could possibly go wrong? Slate News reports that hundreds of illegal aliens have established an encampment in a public park in Seattle after the city ran out of funding to house them in hotels. According to a local report by NBC 24, dozens of tents popped up at Powell Barnett Park in Seattle's Central District neighborhood. Illegal border crossers from Venezuela, Angola, and the Democratic Republic of Congo are living in the park while they demand that taxpayers pay for their permanent housing. The group of mostly military-aged men, well, they had previously camped outside Riverton Park United Methodist Church in early 2023. However, the Democrat-run so-called sanctuary city of Seattle, they allocated tax dollars to pay for them to secure a stay at a hotel in Kent, so reports Fox 13. Now that the funding for their hotel stay is dried up, the illegals are, well, telling local news outlets that they are staying at the park until more funding comes through. Quote, we're waiting for help, end quote. So said Jonathan, a 22-year-old illegal alien from Africa who has never contributed to American society. That's what he told Fox 13. Quote, we don't want to keep moving every month. It's hard, end quote. Speaking through a translator, another Angolan man told Como News that the illegals are, quote, asking for the government to help us with housing, end quote. We'll be right back after this break.
MelissaHousebg.com. Bella Grace Elixir.
She called me today and she told me something, and I said, you have got to tell the audience this. They need to hear this because it's really good news for those of you that, well, are taking Bella Grace.
Well, I went to my hairdresser and I had not told her about this product that I've been taking. When she was blow drying my hair, she said, I just noticed when I was parting your hair and fixing it that you have a bunch of new hair growth. I've been going to this lady for probably 13 years and she's never said that to me. And I had noticed it, but for the fact that she noticed it was, I had to call Brannon right away and tell him. She just said, you've never had this like this, and it's growing, and you just have all these baby hairs growing in, and they're kind of curly. And so I just told her that what I was taking, and she was amazed. So
Bella Grace Elixir. MelissaHousebg.com.
Welcome back from the break. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your support. Thank you for remembering that this broadcast is free of charge for you to watch. It takes a team of about 7 of us, 15 man-hours a day to put it together, and yet we push it out for free. Not only do we carry it, of course, on our home base, worldviewtube.com. We have patriot.tv carrying it, TV30 in Milwaukee, and lots of other outlets pick it up. We let them do so for free. It's a public service and ministry broadcast in part of WVWFoundation.com. So thank you for your support through the foundation, WVWFoundation.com. Think of us as your conservative Christian worldview alternative to, say, NPR, National Public Radio, or National Public Television, that gets millions and millions of dollars from the federal government. We don't. We wouldn't take it anyway. We're brought to you by you. And one way you can do that is through our foundation, WVWFoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address there on our website if you prefer to support us through the mail. Don't forget about our Sunday night church service here at worldviewtube.com on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Central. This Sunday night, Lesson 6, as I'm teaching through the book of Revelation. Hope you can join us. WorldviewTube.com. That's our church service on Sunday nights. Again, brought to you by our foundation, WVW Foundation.com. Zero Hedge reports that America's top defense official is working to pressure European allies to give up their own U.S.-made anti-air defenses and send them to, you guessed it, Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said Tuesday that he's been actively encouraging countries to donate their Patriot missile systems to Ukraine. Austin testified before a House Armed Services Committee, and this is what he said, quote, "There are countries that have Patriots. And so what we're doing is continuing to engage those countries. I have talked to the leaders of several countries, myself, here in the last 2 weeks, encouraging them to give up more capability or provide more capability," end quote. Last Friday, Austin, he announced that as a part of a massive new $6 billion aid package for Kiev, the U.S. will provide additional Patriot missiles. This is part of the first approved rollout in the wake of Biden signing a $61 billion aid package for Ukraine. It was approved by Congress last month. President Zelensky and his top officials have been essentially begging for more Patriots as Russia continues pummeling their cities and infrastructure. Check out the massive fires burning on Wednesday in the southern port city of Odessa. They've been coming under Russian air bombardment. Watch this. Early last month, a report by Financial Times identified Greece and Spain as being under the most pressure from Western allies to give up the few Patriot anti-air defense systems that they possess. Over a week ago, meetings of European Union foreign and defense ministers, they decided that Greece and Spain's anti-air systems, aren't really crucial to their homeland defense. But Germany, the Netherlands, Poland, and Sweden, they also possess them. With Berlin, by the way, recently giving one battery up to Ukraine. The European Foreign Ministry chief, Borrell, he's also ramping up the pressure, saying, quote, "I don't have Patriots in Brussels. They are in the capitals, and it's up to them to take decisions," end quote. This, folks, is what you call desperation. Now it's time for our nightly Worldview Report commentary. As the university protests turned into violent riots on many college campuses this week, it became evident that we live in two different Americas. In one America, illustrated in the way authorities handle the protest in states like where I live, Tennessee, or Georgia, or Florida, the protests, they either remained peaceful or they were quickly shut down, and the provocateurs, they were dealt with accordingly. But in the other America, the protests, they were allowed to simmer, escalate, and finally boil over into full-fledged riots. These violent outbursts, they took place across the board in Democrat-run blue states like California, Oregon, and New York. Here's one instance of what it looked like at UCLA in Los Angeles.
The shields, tear down the umbrellas.
Oh, look at that. Somebody just took a pallet to the head. That was really, really bad. You're right. The plyboard, the bottom of that brawl right there. Look at that. Look at that. Somebody is being dragged and beaten in the front of that plywood wall. Just incredible. Where are the police? Where is security? Where are these people? Where is authority here? It is something I have never covered without any sign of enforcement, law enforcement, security whatsoever. This has gone now on for over an hour and a half. And it is absolutely appalling, in my estimation, that we have not seen any response. I've just never seen it. This may be a sign of things to come, or this may be what...
It was in the summer of 2020 we saw similar destructive and deadly behavior, right? Minneapolis, Chicago, Milwaukee. What's the common theme? Blue states, Democrat-run states. And folks, this is why we've been telling our viewers for some time now to get out of these blue states. Because when you need your local police the most, I'm sad to say, you're not going to be able to count on them. They're not going to be there to protect you, particularly in these large cities within these blue states. If you live in one of these areas and you are aware of what's coming, preparation, well, I think it begins with relocation. Now, I understand that many of you are unable to move to another state due to family, your profession, maybe even your age. You just don't want to travel that far and relocate. But do consider making preparations for what's coming. Maybe find a nice area in the outer suburbs or even in the country. Yeah, it might mean, well, a longer commute for some of you, but it'll also mean you have a buffer between you and, well, the type of insane communists that are rising up and rioting, and I am afraid will spill into the suburbs close to these major cities. So you will thank yourself later for doing this, I think. But if you can't move, at least talk to your neighbors, prepare, and get ready to help and defend each other. Make your preparations and plans that include the police not arriving. What do you need to do? Should your neighborhood be attacked? Should your home be attacked? What preparations are you making now if it means the police show up, well, an hour later or never? You need to start thinking this way, sadly, because that's the situation we're in now in America. The other night, we saw a reporter in a helicopter over one of the encampments at UCLA. The two sides were fighting each other violently. There were a lot of, well, potential head injuries. And yet, the reporter in the helicopter said he had never seen this in his entire career. No police presence. It had been going on for over 90 minutes, and there were no police in sight. He said that he was concerned this might be a sign of things to come, a new norm. And so, are you preparing for this dangerous new norm? You might consider doing so. Well, that does it for this edition of the Worldview Report. As always, thank you for watching and supporting this viewer-supported broadcast. You can do that many ways. One is by going to twc.health/Brannon, twc.health/Brannon. Get yourself one of the Wellness Company emergency medical kits with 8 meds. I have one for every family member. You might want to get one for every family member in case there is a disruption in just-in-time inventory or critical infrastructure and you need an antibiotic. 8 meds in here. You go to twc.health/Brannon. You'll find out what they are, the 8 meds, and what they treat. You'll also save when you use that URL, and you'll support our broadcast when you use that URL. twc.health/Brannon. Another way I think you can support your health and us is by going to melissahousebg.com, melissahousebg.com. This is an elixir that I take every day. Melissa takes it every day. She's the one that found it. It includes collagen, cat's claw, which is an anti-inflammatory, and astaxanthin, which is loaded with antioxidants to take on those free radicals. Now, again, in this are 3 powerful ingredients that really complement each other. And that's why I want you to go to the website, melissahousebg.com, and read about it, including the nearly 80 clinical trials there. Clinical trials, nearly 80 of them. This is not a joke. I take it every day, so does Melissa. It's the real deal with 80 clinical trials. melissahousebg.com. Another way to support us and your health is by going to numi.com/house1. This product contains what's called glutathione. That's a very powerful molecule that detoxes the cells, okay? Just put into a search engine, what are the benefits of glutathione? Watch what pops up. Full details at numi.com/house1, numi.com/house1. Make sure you spell house, Howse, all right? Well, that does it for this edition of the Worldview Report. Till next time, I'm Brannon Howse. May God save America. Take care.